the challenge, I guess, when it comes to purpose is to have an aspiration that is meaningful and big enough and makes sense within your organization and is also inspiring and different enough. The problem with what we see with most vision, missions, and purpose statements is they tend to look something like this. And by the time you get to the end of it, you've already fallen asleep. And the problem with this is that they provide very little vision. I love the visual gag. You've still got the lens caps on. So I want to talk to you a little bit about the research that went into writing my book, because I've been intrigued about leaders who have achieved amazing things and have shifted the world to higher levels. And what can we learn about what they've done and make it applicable into our own environment? And we've created a framework, a model, which hopefully you'll find useful in when you think about things from an adaptive leadership point of view. Now, since the dawn of civilization, leaders on quests have changed the world. From circumnavigating the globe to building the Great Pyramids to going to the moon, bold leaders have ventured into the unknown. They've challenged the impossible. And they've returned with new riches and rewards. I actually believe that quests are the force, it's a leadership force, propelling society forward. Now, Yuval Harari is an author and historian, and he wrote a book called Sapiens, The Brief History of Humankind. And this is another great book that you should try and get your hands on. And in this book, Yuval talks about how humans rule the world because we have the ability to believe not only in fictional but also objective realities. So objective realities are the things that we see around us. These the tables, the desk, the room, the water machine, the projector, rivers, and so on, mountains. But fictional realities are our dreams. And because humans can believe in fictional realities, we've been able to inspire people to collaborate, to come together and achieve amazing things. And it gives an example of a chimpanzee. He says, you can't go up to a chimpanzee and say, give me your bananas. And if you do, you will go to chimpanzee heaven and there will be endless number of bananas. But humans believe in these fictional realities, and because we've been able to believe in them, we've been able to inspire people to build cathedrals, to go on crusades, and to go to the moon. And quests are at the very top, the very pinnacle of fictional realities, our dreams. Now, I mentioned to you earlier that I actually believe we're entering a time that has the potential to be called the age of quests. We're going to see mind-blowing development. The technology is there, the potential is there to blow us away in wonderment. Amazing potential for during the 21st century. The reality is that the 21st century could be our best, and it could also be our worst century. And one of my motivations for writing the book was because I wanted to inspire leaders like yourselves to embark on quests, even if you do your big bit or your small bit, to change the world. Because we're balancing on a knife edge at the moment, and it could go either way. And I would love to be able to have my children looking back and saying this was just the most wonderful time to be growing up. And we have the potential, and I'm encouraged because as I do my research, there is a growing group of what I call Questor Leaders, leaders who are challenging, who want to do things to benefit, they want to tackle big worldly problems that will have a huge impact, that will take their communities and their societies forward. So Elizabeth Holmes is the CEO and founder of Theranos. And Theranos is a company that do blood tests, very uninvasive blood tests, just a little prick, and they can diagnose anything from cancer and diabetes. Hugely, you've got, Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, and regardless of what you think about, say, Facebook or Google, they are doing some phenomenal things. Mark Zuckerberg believes that if we get people to connect, if we get cultures and people from different areas in the world to connect, we will learn about other people, we will learn about their religions, their cultures, and we will gain empathy, and with empathy we can build a better world. And yes, he's, the whole thing about creating Wi-Fi around the world and connecting the other 4 billion who are unconnected to the internet. Yes, there's a commercial reason to do this. Okay? But there's also a very philanthropic reason to do it. The internet pulls people out of poverty. And that is one of the real driving forces behind what Google and Facebook are doing. And Google's doing amazing things in longevity. I spoke about Calico yesterday and what they're doing there, self-driving cars, some kind of amazing things. Elon Musk, the founder of SpaceX and Tesla motor cars, is a maverick, entrepreneur who's really changing everything. And we've always had Questor leaders. I would put Richard Branson in as a Questor leader, somebody who challenged the impossible in many cases and moved us to new and different levels. And my research, I'm encouraged because I see a new generation, a generation of Millennial Questers who look at the world. And I think this is the key thing about Questor leaders, is that they look at the world differently. They look at problems and they say, how can we solve these big problems? And they put solving the problem first. They put solving the problem ahead of making a profit. For a Questor leader, making a profit is the result. It's not the purpose, it's not the reason. The purpose is to solve the problem. Making a lot of money out of it is just the outcome of doing your job well. And there's some great examples of these millennial leaders. So Havas Kuras, he started a company in Lebanon that's helping communities from reducing wastage. Harry Gandhi has started a company that's developing a smart contact lens that will help people with diabetes monitor their sugar levels real time. Ocean Pleasant has started a magazine that deals with the social issues of millennials. Kathy Tai she's 22 years old. By the way, Harry Gandhi is 21, she's 19, she's 21. And Kathy Tai has started a company that is working on preventive medicines and personalized medicines. And Taylor Wilson is the youngest individual to build a fusion reactor in his garage. So yesterday I talked about nuclear fusion, the ability to fuse atoms together. He built one in his garage. It's not a sustainable one. Sorry? Well, the great thing about nuclear fusion is you don't have the fallout. And then we're talking really small things. But yeah, so you've got to be pretty indulgent parents to allow your kid to build a fusion reactor in their garage. Taylor Wilson, he was 14 years old, youngest individual ever to build a fusion reactor. He's 21 now, and he's using his fusion reactor to help hospitals in diagnosing cancers. They're using it in that application. And they're not alone. Have a look at this list of Millennial Questers.
We got a product called Bambina, and I'm tracking vital signs in babies.
Hive is a crowdsourced supercomputer.
Prime is a modular wheelchair which is easily customizable.
My idea is to predict wars.
The platform that allows you to create multiplayer real-time educational games.
I'm the founder and designer of an app called Finish.
I have created an algorithm that I named DotBot.
I'm here to end cancer.
My product is a comprehensive radiation shield composed of 4 layers: carbon nanotubes, polyethylene, boron nitride nanotubes, and radiation dosimeters. My whole thing isn't the radiation side, it's going to Mars.
So they have big dreams, and you're leading many of these millennials. And I would imagine there are a lot of millennial questers within the partnership who want to do things that have an impact in society. The great thing is that being a quester is a mindset. It's a skill that we can learn as adaptive leaders. It's something that we can develop and nurture within ourselves and within our team.
Is there anything that happened in a year or decade or something that is certainly the students that I see, lots of them going out and solving things, just looking to solve things?
Yeah.
when I was at school and college, it was about actually going and earn some money so I could go drinking at the weekend. Yeah, but so was there something that happened?
Yeah.
What was it that...
There has been a social shift. I think part of it is millennials have grown up in an era where they've had the technology which they've been able to do incredible things with. And they've looked at the world and they've said, the technology that we have at our fingertips, we can do incredible, we can change the world. So they've grown up with this inherent belief that they can do these things with access to the technology. The other thing is that they've also grown up during a time when we started to understand and articulate many of the world's big problems. And those two things weren't available when we were at colleges and university. We didn't have the internet, we didn't have the mobile technology, we didn't have those things at our fingertip. And we probably weren't really that familiar about the impact of global warming, AIDS and so on, poverty. Those really came to, the media and social conscience of those things have happened in the last decade. So a lot of these things are kind of generational and events driven, and that's why millennials, they're so passionate about achieving and doing these things and why they look at it differently. But the reality is that any one of us can go on a quest to change, to do our big bit or our small bit to change the world. I'd imagine every single one of us had a dream to do something special. As growing up as a child, you probably dreamt of being a fireman or a doctor, or, coming up with a miracle cure, or going to the moon. Maybe dreams of being an astronaut. Or John, I don't know if you have done, or if you've dreamt of circumnavigating the world solo in a yacht or something like that. But as we grow up, our dreams, they get squashed. We get told to comply, to get in line, to stop dreaming. And somewhere along the line, we start to believe that quests and these dreams are for other people. And we begin to forget about them. And the reality is, it's never been easier to do things to change the world. And there are three reasons. The big shift, and I think this is a big competitive shift that we are seeing. Because of the democratization of information. We spoke yesterday about the power of this huge amount of information that we're able to gather in real time. The power of social media and the access to mobile and disruptive technology. It's never been easier to do your big bit or your small bit to change the world. When a farmer in Nigeria has a computer that's 1,000 times smaller and 100,000 times more powerful and a million times cheaper than what was available in 1969, we know things have shifted. And there are people in Nigeria, there's some great stories that are coming out of Africa, of young entrepreneurs and people who are doing things with this technology and just taking their communities, pulling them out of poverty and doing incredible things. So, let me just give you an example. Anyone, anywhere in this world can change, can use this, the democratization of information, the power of social media, and our access to mobile and disruptive technology. This is Paul Cummings, and he's a ceramic artist who lives in Derby, and he largely works on his own. And he came across a poem one day. A poem that was written by a First World War soldier, a soldier who died in the trenches. And he was captivated by this line: "The blood-swept lands and seas of red where angels fear to tread." And from that quote, he was inspired to create probably the most amazing art exhibition or a memorial for the centenary of the First World War. And the logistics behind creating what he created there was phenomenal. He's one individual. He works on his own in a small little design studio in Derby. He would have to create over 800,000 ceramic poppies. He didn't want to ship this off to China and have them mass produced. He wanted each poppy to individually represent the soul of a fallen soldier. It required an immense task of creating 7,000 poppies every single day. Each poppy, hand pressed and hand carved and put into big ovens. It took an army of over 7,000 volunteers just to plant these poppies, and 23,000 volunteers to remove them. He had a team of workers in his factory working 23 hours a day. They were running 2 shifts. And all of this was on a voluntary basis. He wasn't paying them to do anything. He had a bold quest to make this the most amazing memorial for the centenary. And people bought into that quest. They bought into the dream that he had. I think I was first introduced to the power of a leader's quest in my country of birth, South Africa. It was around about the early 1990s. It was actually 1993. Chris Hani, the charismatic leader of the South African Communist Party, was assassinated. It was the Easter weekend. And my country looked into an abyss. We were very fragile at that stage. There was a lot of negotiation that was happening between the ruling Nationalist Party and the ANC and Nelson Mandela. And genuinely we believed, we looked and I honestly thought our country was going to be thrown into civil war at that point. And I remember the day of Chris Hani's funeral, I joined thousands of mourners marching through the streets of Johannesburg, and we raised our fists high, and we said, Amandla, Awetu, which means power to the people, because we wanted to show the killers that they couldn't kill our dream of a better South Africa, of a free and democratic South Africa. Now, a lot of the reason I think South Africa was able to navigate through this very turbulent time and period of uncertainty was because of the leadership of Nelson Mandela. But Nelson Mandela would even admit that he was only one person. And I think the reason we didn't end up like a Syria or Rwanda or anything like that was because Nelson Mandela he was on a quest for a free and democratic society. A democratic society where, regardless of race or color, you could contribute to making a better country. I think if Mandela just wanted to be in power, if he had wanted to be the president of South Africa, we would have ended up in civil war. But his quest was for a better society. And millions of South Africans and millions of people around the world bought into that dream. And that empowered people to fight their own battle against the apartheid regime. And I do believe that any organization or person can go on quests to make the world a better place. Now, this is a great quote from Peter Thiel, because we have the ability to take the awesome power of business and make this world better. Every great business is built around a secret that is hidden from the outside world. A great company is a conspiracy to change the world. Quote from Peter Thiel. So my research shows, as I was unpacking and doing the research into quests, that there are 3 key benefits of people or leaders who go on a quest. There are 3 things that they are doing. They are delivering meaningful benefits. So we need to be asking ourselves as leaders, what are the meaningful benefits that we are delivering? They challenge the impossible. They challenge the things that people think can't be done. And by challenging the impossible, we are able to take our society to a higher level. And they have a very clear and inspirational and outcome-focused destination. It's very clear where it is that they're tracking and what they're trying to achieve. So step 1 is to create meaningfulness within your circle of influence. Each one of us have a circle of influence. We may be very concerned about global poverty and world hunger, but the reality is, how much can we do to influence or change that? But we do have a circle of influence. One of my colleagues, Graham Codrington, every year he signs up to participate in living below the line. And what that means is for 5 days, he lives on £1 a day. Okay? So he has to he has to live on that to sustain himself for five days. And he shares his experiences with his friends, the community that he reaches, and he's able to raise money and that for this charity. It's a small bit, but it's a bit that is having an impact. We don't all have to go to the moon in order to be contributing and making a difference. So define how you can create meaningfulness within your circle of influence. A great way to do this, and this is something perhaps you'd like to ask, a question you'd like to ask your team, is how big is the hole that you would leave behind if you disappeared? Think about this from a partnership point of view. If the partnership disappeared tomorrow, how big is the hole that would be left behind? Okay? Perhaps it's a slightly uncomfortable question because, would competitors just move in and fill up that hole and life would carry on as normal? We saw that happen with Woolworths, Jessop's. Who cared? Did it really impact our life? I think the partnership, there would be a bigger hole in most companies, but is it enough of a hole?
It's interesting to think how big a hole would leave behind with the individuals immersed in that organisation.
Absolutely, yeah. So the next thing to say is how big a hole would be left if my team, if my department, my division disappeared. If I disappeared as a leader, how big a hole would be left behind? There are some important, perhaps uncomfortable questions, but they're important questions which we should be asking. The second step is to strive, take that meaningfulness. Not everything you do that is meaningful has to change the world, but are there things that you can do which would challenge the impossible, that would perhaps be slightly crazy and off-piste perhaps? Because it's a great quote from Nelson Mandela, it always seems impossible until it's done. And Steve Jobs said, because people who are crazy enough to think they can change the world are the ones that do. So are we encouraging some crazy thinking? I think as adaptive leaders, you need to encourage it, even if it perhaps feels a little bit risky. We need to be brave enough to stand on chairs and tables and look at the world differently and dare to strike out and find new ground. Individuals can have an impact, and organizations are made up of individuals, and our organizations are incredibly powerful. My frustration with leaders and organizations is most of them are not doing enough. When I read about companies like VW and the emissions scandal, why? Why did they do that? And I'm sorry, I don't believe that it was a few rogue engineers in some department doing some naughty things. That goes all the way up to the board, to the culture that they were creating. The story of VW is really interesting. The previous CEO, Winterthur, had set the strategy that they wanted to be the biggest motoring manufacturer in the world by 2018. They wanted to hit 10 million units of car sales per year. He achieved that strategy by 2014. And I would imagine, and he was the toast of Wall Street for having achieved that. And I imagine the pressure that was put on the sales teams, the product design and so on, to achieve those stretch targets were immense. We now know the cost of what that delivered. If his quest was rather than to be the biggest motor factory, but rather to be the cleanest motor factory, the manufacturer that did deliver the emissions that they were talking about, he would have delivered huge value, not only to the shareholders, but also to society. Businesses can do incredible things. I love this story because it's a story of a young, I talked to you yesterday about plastic in the ocean and how plastic is choking our waterways and destroying our environment. And there's a young 18-year-old in Holland who has come up with a really novel idea. And he's looking for organizations to back him on this idea. And the retail industry is a huge contributor to the plastic pollution problem that we're having. And I don't think retailers are doing enough. So part of my challenge to you is, you as retailers, what are the things that you could do to turn this problem around? Maybe you'll get some inspiration from this video.
Once there was a Stone Age, a Bronze Age, and now we are in the middle of the Plastic Age. Because every year we produce about 300 million tons of plastic, and a fraction of that enters rivers, waterways, and eventually the oceans. If we want to eat a biscuit nowadays, we have to buy a biscuit within a plastic wrapper, within a plastic tray, within a cardboard box, within some plastic foil, within a plastic bag. It's not hazardous nuclear waste, it's a biscuit. And well, this is me. I love diving. Just taking you through my holiday slides here. This is at the pristine Azores Islands. And this is how the beaches look. Covered with plastic fragments. Due to sun and waves, over the years, the garbage breaks down into ever smaller pieces, but remains plastic. And, well, interestingly, you don't see a lot of wet particles in here, because those look like food to birds more than any other. So this is the result. And the debris primarily collects at these 5 rotating currents, called the gyres, where it doesn't only directly kill sea life, but due to the absorption of PCBs and DDTs, also poisons the food chain. A food chain that includes us, humans. And while diving in Greece, I came across more plastic bags than fish. And astounded by the depressing sight, my Scottish dive buddy turned to me and said, "Well, lots of jellyfishes here, Lee. Seen about 1,000. There were no jellyfishes."
I love his attempt at a Scottish accent. Not bad for a Dutch-speaking person. And what he's proposing is, and they've done a lot of the experiments and they've developed this, is these pontoons that would float in the ocean and suck up and absorb all of the plastic. And they're talking about 20 billion tons of plastic being cleared out of our oceans, over 7 billion tons per gyro. 5 of these gyros around the world that has been clogged full of plastic.
So it gets cleaned out of the ocean, and then where does it go?
Yeah, I mean, that's a good question. I guess then it gets recycled. Yeah, no, I guess then it gets recycled. Yeah, possibly. The third step that Questor Leaders that they benefit from is having an inspirational and outcome-focused destination. Saint-Exupéry, the French adventurer, said, "If you want to build a flotilla of ships, you don't sit around and talk about carpentry. You set people's souls ablaze with ideas of adventures of distant shores." And we also need to not forget about the power of storytelling in providing these inspirational destinations.
Et puis j'atterris ici. C'est incroyable. Hein? T'entends ça, chérie?
Bah oui, c'est fou.
So a few benefits of building a questing culture within the partnership would be contributing to a better working world, according meaningfulness and purpose within your organization, attracting and retaining talent. I gave the example of Shackleton and how just his quest to go to the South Pole and how that attracted talent. fostering an innovative culture, empowering teams. When you know what the destination is, you can release the teams to try different ways and different approaches, because when you know where you need to go, if you come across a dead end, you just reroute, as Steve Jobs did. You backtrack, you recalculate, you've got your sat-nav, recalculate new routes, and you go. Loyal customers who buy into the quest that you're on, and ultimately, competitive advantage. And I do believe that you can do your bit and your small bit to change the world, not the world necessarily, but your world, the world that each one of you influences. So let's take a little exercise. I haven't done this before, so I'll be honest, I'm using you guys as guinea pigs, because this kind of exercise we could do over several days, if not weeks, in building and understanding what our culture could be. But let's for the next 45 minutes, let's give a stab at doing this. What we need to do is we need to list what are your concerns. So kind of define your circle of influence and what are your concerns within the partnership, maybe a bit broader, perhaps even in the world. And then look for areas where your circle of influence and your concerns might overlap, and think, where can you, as a partnership, and maybe you might want to make your world of influence quite small. It might just be within the partnership, a section of the partnership that you influence, or a bit broader. You can decide if you want to look at internally, or as a group look as if you were the complete partnership, the whole partnership. Think about some crazy, impossible things that you might be able to do, and then what would your destination be? Okay. Go for it. Jot down your ideas, capture them on the flip charts, and then we'll report back at the end and let's see what we come up with.